They told you the body is just flesh and bone, that your thoughts are static, that what you can touch is all that matters. But they never told you about the fire inside. Not because they didn't know, but because they didn't want you to find it. There's a force within you older than language, older than civilization, older than belief itself. A serpent coiled at the base of your spine, waiting, not sleeping. It's called Kundalini. And once it rises, nothing stays the same. Not your mind, not your body, not the very fabric of the world you see around you. You felt it, even if you didn't have the words. A flicker of energy when everything is still. A knowing without reason. A pull towards something greater. This isn't fantasy. It's what they've buried beneath distractions, obligations, and noise. Because the moment you tap into that power, you stop being easy to control. You stop being predictable. You stop being theirs. You were born with power. Not potential, power. But from the moment you opened your eyes, the world moved fast to make you forget it. Before you had the chance to explore who you really are, you were given a name, a number, a role. You were told how to behave, what to believe, and where to focus your attention. And while you were learning how to walk, they were already building a cage around your mind. The serpent at the base of your spine wasn't just ignored, it was silenced. Instead of nurturing the energy within you, they made you worship what was outside of you. School taught you to memorize facts, not feel the truth. The media flooded you with distraction, not wisdom. And religion, for many, became a set of rules to follow rather than a path to inner knowing. The system never wanted you to ask questions like, what is this energy I feel when I'm still? Or, why do I sense more than what I'm told is real? Because those questions point to something ancient, something powerful, something uncontrollable. Kundalini is not some poetic metaphor. It's a raw, biological force, measurable, transformative, and deeply inconvenient for those who profit from your obedience. When awakened, it rises through the body like fire through dry grass, burning away illusions and waking up parts of you that were never meant to sleep. It's why mystics spoke in visions and poets in riddles. Once it rises, the ordinary world cannot contain you, and the system knows it. So instead, they offer a safer version of life. One where your worth is measured by test scores, job titles, and your ability to conform. They keep you at the surface, feeding you shallow victories while burying the depths. Think about it. When was the last time someone taught you to sit in stillness, to breathe into your spine, to listen inward instead of outward? You've been taught to tune out your own body, when it's actually the antenna for your highest self. And every time you ignored that inner pull, every time you said yes when something inside screamed no, every time you felt the rush of emotion rising from your core and shoved it down, that was the serpent stirring, trying to wake you. But they trained you to fear it, to label it anxiety, or madness, or weakness. So you reach for pills, for screens, for distractions, and the fire sinks back into the earth of your body, waiting again. Some knowledge is too potent for platforms like this. That's why we created Insights Academy, our private newsletter where we share the truths that can't be posted here. Sign up through the link in the description and you'll instantly receive a copy of the Kybalion, free, for a limited time only. The greatest trick the system ever pulled was convincing you that your power doesn't exist, that the inner electricity you feel is random, meaningless. But it's not. It's your initiation. Kundalini isn't a fantasy, it's your inheritance. A spiritual fire curled beneath your everyday awareness, waiting to rise, waiting to burn away the false layers you've been told are you. And what's left after the burning is not weakness, it's not emptiness. It's clear, it's force, it's soul. Long before science claimed the body, before religion turned spirit into obedience, and before modern life drowned out mystery with noise, ancient cultures understood something most have forgotten. The body is a vessel, but not just for blood and breath. It's a temple for power. And at the center of that power was Kundalini. The serpent wasn't just a symbol, It was a map. A sacred key whispered across continents, hidden in temples, carved into stone, passed through chants and sacred breath. In India, yogis spoke of Shakti, the divine feminine force coiled at the base of the spine, sleeping until the soul is ready to awaken. In Egypt, the Uraeus serpent on the pharaoh's crown represented divine wisdom rising through the spine into the third eye. In Gnostic texts, the fire of awakening was described as a spiritual current, a purification that revealed the divine within. These weren't metaphors. These were warnings, blueprints, initiation codes. But the world you grew up in wasn't built to carry that kind of fire. The modern age wanted factories, not sages, workers, not mystics. So the wisdom was buried, sometimes burned, sometimes rewritten, sometimes turned into cartoons. The sacred became superstition. The body was reduced to flesh, and the serpent was demonized. Because if you knew what you carried inside, if you knew that divinity isn't in the sky but in your spine, you would no longer follow orders. You'd start following the truth. Kundalini is more than just energy. It's conscious. It doesn't just activate your system. It rewrites your understanding of reality itself. When it rises, the entire nervous system is flooded with light, memory, and insight. It burns through emotional blockages, karmic residue, and mental programming. You don't just think differently, you become someone else. Or more accurately, you return to the someone you always were beneath the noise. This is why it was hidden. Not because it's false, but because it's real. Too real. Real enough to undo everything you've been taught to believe about who you are, what you're capable of, and why you're here. That kind of knowledge threatens control. You can't govern someone who knows their own soul. You can't manipulate someone who's felt divine electricity in their bones. You can't sell a fake version of happiness to someone who's tasted ecstasy from within. And make no mistake, Kundalini isn't gentle. It doesn't always arrive with peace and light. Sometimes it comes as chaos. Sometimes it tears your life apart before rebuilding it in alignment. Because real awakening isn't comfortable. It's raw. It's violent. It's transformative. Like a forest fire that burns deadwood to make room for growth, this energy will destroy what isn't true, and what remains is pure soul, untouched, unshaken, undeniable. That's why ancient mystery schools didn't teach it to everyone. You had to be ready. Not perfect, not holy, just ready. Ready to let go of illusion, ready to surrender control, ready to feel what it means to be alive in a way no book, no religion, no system ever told you was possible. This is the forbidden knowledge, not because it's dangerous, but because it's liberating. And in a world built on control, liberation is the most dangerous thing of all. From the very beginning, you were trained to separate, to divide what you feel from what you know, to split your body from your soul, your instinct from your reason, your truth from their approval. This wasn't an accident. It was programming, layered into language, stitched into culture, baked into education. You were taught to distrust your inner world, to silence the very voice trying to wake you up. When a child sees light where adults see shadow, we call it imagination. When a teenager questions everything, we call it rebellion. When an adult dares to break the mold, we call it instability. Do you see the pattern? Anything that doesn't fit the system structure is pathologized, dismissed, mocked, and over time, you learn to doubt yourself, not because you're wrong, but because your truth doesn't fit the box they built for you. But Kundalini doesn't live in that box. It doesn't speak the language of conformity. It doesn't bow to logic. It speaks through sensation, symbolism, dreams, and inner knowing. And that's exactly why they trained you to ignore those things. They gave you words like crazy, delusional, unrealistic to silence your visions. They made spirituality into something you do on weekends, not a way of life. And in doing so, they didn't just separate you from the divine, they separated you from yourself. Language is a beautiful tool, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon. Every phrase you were taught growing up carried an invisible command. Don't talk back. means suppress your voice. That's just the way it is, means don't question authority. You're being too sensitive means numb your feelings. These aren't neutral expressions, they're code. Code that teaches you to fragment your being so you can survive in a world that punishes wholeness. And when the serpent stirs, it doesn't just wake energy, it brings all your suppressed parts to the surface. The parts you buried to be liked, to be good, to be safe. It doesn't just rise through your body, it rises through your lies. It breaks the masks, it cracks the shell, and in doing so, it forces you to remember what the world asked you to forget. Most people think awakening is about adding more knowledge, more practices, more wisdom. But Kundalini doesn't add, it strips away. It removes what isn't real. The persona you built to survive begins to crumble. The voice in your head that sounds like your parents, your teachers, your bosses, it gets quieter. And what's left is something ancient, something wild, something utterly free. This is why it terrifies them. A fragmented mind is easy to control. A whole being is unpredictable. You're not meant to be predictable. You're not here to follow scripts. You're here to be a living embodiment of something untamed and eternal. But first, you must see the fragments. You must name the lies. You must understand that the separation they built into you wasn't for your growth. It was for their control. Kundalini doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about the rules. When it rises, it rewrites everything, and the illusion of separation begins to dissolve, not in a flash of light, but in the subtle remembering that you were never just a body, you were never just a mind, you were never just a role. You are a current of awareness, flowing through a sacred vessel, ready to return to wholeness. There comes a moment, often without warning, when the world feels like it's tearing at the seams. Not in chaos, but in clarity. You see something in the corner of your mind, feel something just beneath your skin. The breath shifts, the air thickens, the silence becomes loud. You've felt it before, haven't you? In a moment of deep stillness, in a dream that felt more real than waking life, in a flash of insight that didn't come from thought, but from somewhere deeper, older, wiser. That's not imagination. That's the serpent stirring. When Kundalini begins to rise, it doesn't knock gently. It surges, it spirals, it climbs. And as it moves, it brings your awareness with it, lifting it out of the mind and into something far more vast. This is where the psychic senses awaken. Not because you're developing some new skill, but because you're peeling away the static that blocked what was always there. Clairvoyance, precognition, energy sensitivity, intuitive knowing, these aren't supernatural gifts reserved for a chosen few. They are the natural byproducts of consciousness becoming whole again. Your nervous system becomes a receiver. Your body, once numb to the subtle, becomes alive with signals. You feel the presence of people before they enter the room. You hear the deeper message behind someone's words. You sense the shifts in energy that most never notice. And as strange as it sounds, it doesn't feel strange at all. It feels like finally seeing clearly, finally remembering what it means to feel fully alive. But this awakening isn't all light and bliss. When the serpent rises, it carries the fire of truth, and truth burns. It scorches illusions. It melts false identities. It brings to the surface everything you've suppressed. Old traumas, forgotten memories, ancestral pain. It all comes flooding back, not to punish you, but to be witnessed, felt, and released. Because you can't carry that baggage into the next dimension of yourself. The fire doesn't allow it. And through it all, something deeper begins to emerge. A stillness beneath the storm. A clarity that doesn't depend on thought. A knowing that bypasses words. It's here, in this state, that you begin to realize that the body isn't just a vehicle. It's a temple, a conduit, a bridge between the finite and the infinite. You start to feel the chakras as living portals. You begin to sense energy not just as theory, but as tangible vibration, rising, dancing, pulsing with intelligence. This is what the ancient mystics meant when they spoke of communion with the divine. Not worshipping something outside of you, but merging with something already inside you. The spark of the cosmos encoded in your spine. The soul fire that transforms your body into a living shrine. And when this energy reaches the crown, something extraordinary happens. Not in fireworks or visions, but in simplicity, in peace, in the deep, unwavering sense that you are not separate from anything. That the trees, the sky, the people around you, the rhythm of life itself, it's all you. Not in an egoic way, but in a way that humbles you to the bone. The illusion of isolation collapses. You don't become more. You become real. Kundalini doesn't make you special. It reveals that you were never ordinary, that the world you accepted as normal was a shadow, and that the truth, the real truth, lives in the quiet fire beneath your spine, waiting patiently for you to listen, to surrender, and to rise. Not every awakening is graceful. Not every rise of Kundalini comes in gentle waves. For some, it doesn't feel like enlightenment. It feels like breakdown. This is the part they don't put in the books, the part the love and light crowd often avoids, because while the serpent is sacred, it is also wild. And when it awakens before the body, mind, and spirit are ready, it doesn't illuminate, it consumes. People speak of Kundalini as blissful, euphoric, transcendent, and it can be. But those same people rarely talk about the trembling, the panic, the crushing weight of energy spiraling through a nervous system that's never been prepared to hold it, heart racing without cause, vision blurring, emotions erupting from nowhere, a sudden sensitivity to light, sound, thought itself. For many, it feels like going mad. And in some cases, it leads them to institutions, to medication, to years of confusion because no one told them what was really happening. This is the fire that doesn't just burn illusions, it scorches everything. Your identity, your stability, your attachments. It tears through unresolved trauma like a storm, ripping open memories and fears buried so deep you didn't even know they were there. You may cry without reason. You may feel euphoric one moment and devastated the next. You may wake up at 3 a.m. with your entire body vibrating and no idea why. And if you try to suppress it, if you try to shut it down out of fear or misunderstanding, the energy doesn't go away. It turns inward, it fragments, it distorts. This is why in ancient traditions, Kundalini was guarded knowledge. Initiates were prepared through years of meditation, breathwork, and purification. Not because the energy is evil, but because it is uncompromising. Like a river released from a dam, it will follow its course. And if the channels are blocked by trauma, belief systems, or emotional resistance, the river will flood. It will overflow into your relationships, your work, your sleep, your sanity. But even in this chaos, there is wisdom. What feels like destruction is often initiation. The old you, the constructed self, the obedient self, the self that played by the world's rules, cannot carry Kundalini. It has to die. And death, even symbolic, is messy. It doesn't ask your permission. It doesn't care about your plans. It clears the space, even if you're not ready to let go. That's why grounding is not optional. Without grounding, Kundalini has no container. You need stillness, breath, earth. You need time in silence, away from stimulation. You need practices that keep you connected to your body, because the body is your anchor. This isn't about ascension, it's about embodiment. And until you learn to carry this fire with reverence and discipline, it will carry you. Sometimes gently, sometimes not. There's no shame in struggling with this energy. In fact, it's more common than most people realize. Because the moment Kundalini rises, everything false becomes unbearable. Toxic relationships, meaningless jobs, shallow conversations, they don't just irritate you, they feel suffocating. And that's because they no longer match your frequency. You've changed, even if the world around you hasn't caught up. But here's the truth most people miss. The chaos is not a sign that something's gone wrong. It's a sign that something real is waking up. You're not falling apart. You're shedding. And what feels like madness is often just the ego losing its grip on a reality that no longer fits. It's terrifying, but it's also sacred, because every initiation begins with fire. What if the chaos wasn't the end, but the beginning of something ancient unfolding within you? What if the disorientation, the collapse of identity, the shaking of everything you thought was solid, wasn't breakdown, but alchemy? That's what they never taught you. Kundalini doesn't just wake you up. It changes you on a cellular level. It dissolves who you were and rewires who you're becoming. This isn't spiritual tourism. It's spiritual fire. And real transformation doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes through transmutation. The energy moves like a blacksmith working molten metal. It heats up what's rigid, exposes impurities, and hammers it into shape. The ego, once the master of your story, begins to crack. Not because it's bad, but because it's no longer in charge. The roles you used to play, people pleaser, victim, performer, overachiever, no longer fit. Not because you've abandoned them, but because they're being burned out of you. Kundalini doesn't just rise upward, it spirals through each chakra, triggering deep initiations at every level of your being. In the root, it confronts your survival fears. Every story about lack, abandonment, danger is dragged into the light. In the sacral, it awakens your relationship to desire, creativity, sensuality, and shame. You begin to feel again. You begin to want, but this time from truth, not trauma. In the solar plexus, it tests your will, your boundaries, your power. Can you say no? Can you speak your truth? Can you stand in yourself without shrinking? Then it moves to the heart, and this is where it either softens you or breaks you, usually both. Everything you've withheld comes forward. Love you didn't give, grief you never processed, forgiveness you never offered. The heart cracks open, not for romance, but for wholeness. And when it does, something divine floods in. Something that feels like home even if you've never known it before. From there, it rises into the throat. Here, your voice changes. Not just your tone, but your message. You begin to speak with resonance. Not for approval, not to perform, but to express what's real. Even if it shakes, even if it costs you something. The throat isn't just for communication. It's the gateway for truth to enter the world. Then comes the third eye, and with it, vision. Not fantasy, but perception. You start to see beneath surfaces. You read the room before words are spoken. You see the systems, the structures, the energies behind events. You know when someone's lying even when they believe their own words. You begin to trust your inner sight more than the noise outside. And finally, the crown, union, the moment where the personal self dissolves into the universal. It doesn't mean you float away or lose touch with the world. It means you finally understand your place in it. You're not the center, but you're not separate either. You are a thread in the divine tapestry, and now you can feel it. Every choice, every breath, every interaction becomes sacred. This is alchemy, not gold from lead, but soul from self. It's not about becoming better, it's about becoming whole. All the scattered parts, all the disowned shadows, all the forgotten gifts, they return, not in chaos, but in coherence. And when they do, you don't become someone new. You become someone ancient, someone true, someone finally ready to walk the path not as a seeker, but as a living embodiment of the sacred. Once the fire has moved through you, you can't go back. Not really. You can try to pretend, to shrink again, to play the same roles, speak the same words, wear the same masks, but something in you has changed. The code has been rewritten. The script no longer fits. And in a world that thrives on sleepwalking, your very presence becomes disruptive. That's what most people don't understand about awakening. It doesn't just shift how you feel, it shifts how you live. You begin to move differently, speak differently. You're no longer motivated by fear or the chase for validation. You stop performing and start being. But that very act, being real in a world addicted to illusion, is revolutionary. The people around you might not know what's changed, but they'll feel it. Some will be drawn to it, like moths to flame. Others will resist it, because when you stop playing small, you unconsciously challenge everyone still pretending. Your truth triggers their comfort. Your stillness agitates their chaos. Your inner alignment exposes their avoidance. And yet, this is not your problem. It's your invitation to keep going, to keep walking, even if you walk alone for a while. The system isn't built for awakened beings. It doesn't know what to do with people who can't be manipulated by fear, who won't buy happiness, who refuse to betray their soul for a salary or social status. That's why it fights so hard to keep people numb, distracted, addicted. An awakened human is the system's glitch, a disruption in the matrix. But you are not here to fit into a broken paradigm. You are here to live as a new blueprint, a way shower, not through preaching, but by embodiment, not by trying to save others, but by refusing to abandon yourself. When you carry sacred energy in a sleeping world, your life becomes your message. You start making different choices. You no longer eat food that deadens your spirit. You no longer chase relationships that echo your wounds. You no longer hand over your attention to mindless noise. You begin to treat your energy as sacred currency, and you stop spending it on anything that drains your soul. And without even trying, you begin to inspire others to do the same. This is how the collective shifts, one awakened presence at a time, not through mass movements or viral trends, but through quiet revolutions. The way you speak to your child, the way you hold yourself in conflict, the way you breathe through fear instead of reacting from it. These are not small acts. These are sacred disruptions in a world that thrives on unconscious repetition. And still, the fire continues, not in wild surges, but in steady presence. You become the eye of the storm, the calm within chaos. You stop needing to escape the world, and instead bring your frequency into it. And over time, that frequency reshapes the spaces around you. Your home becomes a sanctuary. Your work becomes purpose-driven. Your friendships deepen, and your mere existence becomes medicine. Because when Kundalini awakens, you no longer live to survive, you live to serve something greater. Not an institution, not a leader, not even an ideology, but life itself. You begin to move in rhythm with something that doesn't need to be named. Call it source, call it consciousness, call it soul. What matters is that you feel it, and you trust it, even when the world doesn't. You were never meant to chase a purpose like a prize. You were meant to remember it, slowly, deeply, like waking from a long sleep and recognizing your own reflection for the first time. The world taught you that purpose is something external, something you earn or acquire or achieve. But Kundalini shows you the opposite. It doesn't hand you a blueprint for a career or a title. It peels back the layers until only what's true remains. And from that truth, purpose begins to rise. Not as a goal, but as a frequency. You start realizing that you were never lost, only covered. Buried under expectations, pressure, and survival roles. The more the energy moves through you, the more those layers fall away. And what's left isn't a neatly packaged plan. It's a compass, a magnetic pull toward what feels right in your bones, even if it makes no sense to anyone else. That's how you know it's yours. But this kind of purpose isn't always loud or visible. It's not about grand gestures or world-changing missions. Sometimes it's found in how you speak to someone in pain, in how you create, how you move, how you love without holding back. It's in your alignment, not your appearance. It's in the way you show up when no one is watching. And when you trust that, even when it's quiet, it grows, it deepens. It starts to inform every choice, every boundary, every step forward. This is the power of awakened living. You stop outsourcing your identity. You stop seeking applause or validation to feel alive. You begin to live from your own current, your own truth, your own inner authority. And yes, it can be lonely. Yes, it can be terrifying to step off the well-paved path. But once you've touched that place inside yourself, the place that hums with fire and clarity, there's no going back. And here's the thing no one tells you. Most people are scared of purpose because they think it demands perfection. But your purpose isn't waiting for you to be perfect. It's waiting for you to be present, to be honest, to be fully in your own energy, even if you're still figuring it out, especially then. Because when you show up in that raw, real state, you give others permission to do the same. And that ripple, that echo, is how real change begins. Purpose isn't a destination, it's a vibration. It's how you move through the world, how you listen to your soul when it whispers instead of waiting for it to scream. It's how you honor the fire without needing to explain it to those still afraid of the heat. And when you live like that, when you let your energy guide you instead of your fear, something miraculous happens. You begin to feel whole. Not because everything is figured out, not because you're done evolving, but because you're finally aligned. Aligned with who you are, why you came, and where you're going. And that alignment speaks louder than any words. It draws in the right people, the right opportunities, the right pathways. You don't chase anymore. You attract. You magnetize. You create not from lack, but from overflow. This is what they never wanted you to know. Your purpose was never outside you. It was in your breath, your presence, your being. And the more you live it, the more you realize you didn't come here to fit in. You came here to light up, to remember, to embody the fire that was planted in your spine before you even took your first breath. And that fire is still there, still waiting, still rising. There is something ancient moving through this moment. You can feel it, can't you? Beneath the distractions, beneath the noise, beneath the endless pressure to perform and conform, there's a pulse, a vibration in the collective field, a signal that something is shifting, you're not imagining it. The soul is waking up, not just yours, but all over the world, quietly, invisibly, unmistakably. And when Kundalini rises in one person, it doesn't stop there. That energy spills outward. It changes conversations. It disrupts patterns. It alters timelines. You start to see it in others too, in their questions, their pain, their sudden bursts of clarity. You're not the only one feeling this fire. You're not the only one who's done pretending. And that's what makes this different. This isn't just a personal awakening. It's a collective remembering. We were never meant to live disconnected from the divine. We were never meant to be walking calculators, measuring our worth in productivity and possessions. We were meant to feel, to sense, to know, to live as living bridges between the seen and the unseen. That's what Kundalini does. It restores what the system severed. It gives you back your inheritance, not from a religion, not from a teacher, but from within your own being. You start seeing the sacred in places you once overlooked, the way the sunlight hits your skin, the rhythm of your breath, the stillness between words. You stop needing to prove anything. You stop chasing meaning and begin to live it. And in that space, you find something no system can give you: sovereignty, not the kind stamped by governments or validated by followers, but the kind that radiates from your spine when you're finally aligned with your own source. This energy doesn't make life easier. It makes life real. You'll still face challenges, loss, fear, but you'll meet them differently. You'll meet them with presence, with depth, with a knowing that no storm is greater than the fire you carry within. And that knowing becomes your anchor, your compass, your offering. And if you've made it this far, you're already different, not because of what you've learned, but because of what you've remembered, because something ancient in you recognized the truth between these words, and that recognition is sacred. It means the flame is already flickering, already rising. Now it's just a matter of tending it, protecting it, living by it. Don't let it go cold. Don't trade it for comfort. Don't wait for permission, because this world doesn't need more people who are successful by society's standards. It needs people who are awake, people who carry light not in theory, but in their presence, people who remember who they are and refuse to forget again. If you've been moved by this journey, know this: it doesn't have to end here. In Insights Academy, our free newsletter, we dive even deeper into these mysteries, offering you what can't be said out loud. And yes, you'll get the Kybalion free when you join. But the real gift is the fire you'll keep alive. This is your moment. Not a finish line, but a return. A return to self, to spirit, to the truth they tried so hard to bury but could never destroy. Because it lives in you. It always has. And now, finally, it's waking up. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting. I understood it.